Hey guys, it's Daniel, licensed therapist. How do you get confidence? Well, that's a question that we're going to attempt to answer today. And to do that, we're going to look at this really cool clip I found of John Danaher and Ben Askren talking to a group of students. And if you don't know John Danaher, he's a jiu-jitsu coach, and he's probably the greatest jiu-jitsu coach ever. He has a PhD in philosophy, and he used his brilliant mind and just went all in on combat sports. His student, Gordon Ryan, is the greatest grappler on the planet, and he's coached some of the best MMA fighters, including the greatest of all time, George St. Pierre. He loves jiu-jitsu so much that he wears a rash guard everywhere. You can't find a picture of him not wearing a rash guard. If it exists, I haven't seen it. And Ben Askren is a retired MMA fighter and Olympic wrestler. He fought in the UFC, and he was a long-time reigning ONE and Bellator champion. So these guys are the best of the best when it comes to combat sports. But do they know what they're talking about when it comes to psychology? So if they got in the octagon of psychology with arguably the best of the best, you're a guy, okay, maybe that's debatable. Would they be able to tell me how confidence is gained? Well, let's try and answer that question. Let's get into this clip.
You can't really divide mental and physical training. I think Ben actually pointed to this in his answers. I think the biggest problem whenever people talk about mental training is the terms they use are so vague that they essentially become meaningless. Okay? You've got to start pinning down the terms. What does it even mean to say that this guy has a mental problem? Or there's some kind of mental deficiency. You've got to start pinning it down. For me, one of the most profitable ways to start talking about mental training in combat sports is what I see as the single clearest sense in which I can see a mental problem diminishes athletic performance, and this is confidence. Okay, when someone has a confidence problem, that has physical manifestations. You can literally see it and measure it. Okay, all of you have a certain skill set. Not sure what it is, but you all have a certain skill set. Some of you more, some of you less. Whatever that skill set is, you will exhibit it to 100% of its potential in a gym, in a relaxed environment. Okay, and you'll go out there and slap hands with your buddy, and if you know 100 moves, you'll use all 100 moves. Why? Because there's no consequences to failure. It's just a gym. He's just your friend. And so if you know 100 moves, you'll use all 100. Now you go out on a big stage. There's a big crowd watching. They're calling out your name, the lights are on. Suddenly you think to yourself, I can't use 90 of those moves because I'm not very good at them. One day earlier, you were a guy that knew 100 moves. Now you're a guy who knows 10. Then you get out there, the guy's looking in your eyes and you're melting. And now those 10 became 3. And now when your buddies watch you from the sideline, what are they looking at? They're looking at a guy who knows 3 moves. 3 moves is not going to get you through the match. And you go out there, you get dumped, guy passes, and you're like a shell of yourself. Okay, there's a confidence problem. Confident athletes are those who can use 100% of what they know, or at least closer to it. We all know guys who have an amazing skill performance level in the gym, and there's a severe diminishing when they get on the stage. Okay, there's your gym performance and your stage performance. Confident athletes are those where there's the least possible discrepancy between the two. And mental training is essentially the training which takes your gym performance level and your stage performance level and unifies them. The higher the discrepancy, the more mental problems are readily observable. And most of those mental problems have to do with confidence.
Okay, John is not wrong here. And you wouldn't be wrong if you liked and subscribed. But did you notice he didn't really do anything to define what confidence is? What he did, if you didn't notice, was he just listed behaviors that describe the outcome of confidence. So what John does is he describes confidence as the discrepancy between what happens on the practice mat and what happens on the competition floor. And while I think that that's a really cool definition and it really applies to what he's doing, I don't think it really describes what's going on between the ears, what's going on within your thoughts, in your mind and emotions. So in that sense, I feel like it's severely lacking.
The question is, and this is essentially the question you were asking, how are you going to bring up somebody's confidence? Probably the most common method which I see come from sports psychologists. I'm going to say something controversial here.
Let's hear it.
People are going to hate it. I think it's a total scam industry.
Say it ain't so, John. Okay. Let's not get defensive. Let's hear him out and see what he has to say.
I know people are going to crucify me for saying this, but I believe sports psychology, and so, as far as you just, I'm going to talk this guy into confidence. Whenever you use words as the basis of your confidence, when you get up on the stage and you get punched in the face or picked up and slammed on your head, all that confidence is going to run right at your asshole.
Okay, so I'm not a sports psychologist, but one thing I do address a lot in my practice with my clients is performance and how to perform well. So I'm not exactly sure what he's saying when he says words. I'm guessing that when John is saying words, he's alluding to visualization, which I think is a very powerful thing. And a lot of people do it in the highest level of sports. I mean, let's just look at what our guy Conor McGregor has to say about it.
Versus physical. If you're able to recall that kind of information, how much of an advantage does that give you?
It's probably 100% mental. I believe people say it's like 90% mental, 10% physical. I just think it's 100% mental. I think everything is an illusion. The mind is what creates these things. It's just the mind creates the shot. I have visualized these shots landing quick every time, and I've been predicting what way it's going to go. And it just comes true. So I don't know. I believe it's 100% mental.
So I understand this is sort of a passing comment, but I would love to sit down with John and ask him what he means by sports psychology words and why it's nonsense. Because I have to say, at the highest level, you're looking for every single edge possible. And a lot of people do utilize these techniques and have sports psychologists working for them. Let's keep going.
It's,
Can I add on here?
Yeah.
On that note, so I actually, I'm not going to debate you on the sports psychology. I love sports psychology, but I think a lot of them are kind of voodoo doctors.
Yeah.
My senior year of college, I wrote a book with a sports psychologist about wrestling. We thought it wasn't good enough, so we never published it. But I stayed friends with her for the last 11 years. And one of the really interesting things she said to me, we talked maybe 2011 about, hey, let's actually get this. We had 100 pages done. Let's tie it all back together. She said, I want to take out the confidence chapter. I said, why do you want to do that? That's like the most important chapter. And she said, well, here's the thing, is it's not really about being confident. What it's about is executing. I thought, wow, that's interesting. So I thought, well, is she right or is she wrong? I thought about this for a while. And I think, and kind of John's point of this is the thing that confident people have is to have the ability to only think about execution. Because someone who's not confident is thinking, he's got big biceps. Oh man, you see his tattoo? Oh, he's got a great guard. And they start thinking about all this irrelevant. Oh, my girlfriend's in the stands. I'm gonna embarrass myself. My dad's out there. He's gonna yell at me. I'm gonna embarrass my coach. Right? They're thinking about like all of this irrelevant shit that doesn't even matter. And the confident guy's just like, oh, I'm gonna go kick his ass. And they're not really thinking about anything. So they're literally thinking like, okay, what I need to do? I need to get a collar tie. I need to get my single leg. I need to take him down. I need to pass his guard. And they're literally thinking about the execution portion. So then I really pushed back harder because she said we need to take out the confidence chapter because it doesn't matter. All that matters is execution. And so then eventually I pushed back really hard, and we still haven't written the damn book. We need to at some point. I pushed back. I said I think the confidence is important because the confidence allows you to execute, like John's saying, because a not confident person has all these issues that they're worrying about, which then takes them from the 100 moves he was talking about to the 3 moves. But if you can, get rid of all that, really, if you can do it and confidence allows you to do it, it's the execution that really matters. Like literally, how do you stop thinking about anything else that is taking place at that moment in time and think about, it's why Connor's so great. It doesn't matter there's 20,000 stupid Irishmen standing in the stands. It only matters that he puts his left hand near his chin. That's the only thing that really matters. Nothing else matters except that one instant, right? And that's the greatest people can isolate those instances and just execute in that moment in time.
Agree 100% with this. Your mind is a computer, and there is limited RAM in your mind. There's a limited amount of space and attention that you could dedicate to something. And if you're going to step into a cage with a man that's going to try and kill you, you're going to need all the RAM at your disposal so that you don't die. That's a tough task because there are a lot of intrusive thoughts, I would imagine, if you're getting up, fighting in front of millions of people, thoughts that are going to intrude and take up that precious RAM. So I'm really on board with what Ben is saying. I think it's a lot more descriptive of what really happens in the mind and emotions regarding confidence. It's your ability to use 100% focused and not have those intrusive thoughts come in. But still, I think that there's a problem here because I think there's something that Ben has to answer is, how do we do that? How do we stop those intrusive thoughts? Let's keep going and see if he answers that.
So I hope that.
So how do you bridge the gap?
That's a great question.
I think training, forcing kids to execute and just getting them thinking that way and getting, when you see them get off track, when you see a parent that's busting their ass, get out of here. Go drink a coffee. You don't need to be here. When you see them worried about something, why are you worried about that? Really bring up, I vocalize what I see them doing. Is it they're too worried about what their opponent's doing? Is it they're too worried about their dad? Is it they're thinking about, they skip this guy, they're thinking about their next opponent, right? What is it that they forgot about? And so I try to vocalize that to them so they realize I need to be in the moment, I need to focus, I need to do exactly what I need to do right now. That's all that really matters. That's what I try, that's my strategy.
Okay, so Ben answers a question, how do we do it? But if you ask my opinion, he was put on the spot and he didn't know the answer, so he just kind of pulled something out of his butt. And essentially his answer was, you just kind of shove it down and you just don't pay attention to it, which I guess you can do, but it's a really, really tough thing. And if the thought is very powerful and very intrusive, I just don't think that that's a viable answer. But in order to really, really address that problem, I think Ben needs to know where these thoughts come from. And I just don't think he has the answer to that question. And I don't expect him to have the answer to that question. So it's okay. Let's keep going.
Whenever I talk about confidence, as you can probably tell, I'm not a big believer in the idea of being spoken into confidence, or of words. But I do believe that you can build confidence through small-scale success in the gym, building progressively over time. What breeds confidence is past physical successes in similar situations to those you're about to face. So you can systematically build confidence in unconfident people by this method. Okay, let's identify what they're trying to do. They're trying to go out and attack with submission holds, takedowns, etc., on a resisting opponent. If they have a long record of success in the gym, they will fully believe in their ability to do the same thing out there on the stage. But you can't just go from words to a physical action and be confident. You've got to start with the physical actions in the gym. You've got to start them small. Just as no one would ever take you on your first day in a gym and put a 500-pound barbell in front and say, lift it. They would start you with a small barbell and over time progressively build you up to 500 pounds. So too with the skills of combat sport. You start people and you give them repeated successes over time. Every time there is a success, you offer reward, so that they come to associate their success with good feelings. And as time goes, their confidence increases, and ultimately they'll get to a point where they can go out and pull the trigger on the stage. You've got to get them believing that if they can satisfy certain prerequisites, they can get what they want.
Okay, so that's John Danaher's take. And when I first heard this advice, I thought,
Well, no fucking shit.
I think everybody knows that. If you want to feel confident on the pickleball court, practice like crazy, get really good at pickleball so that you get on that court and you destroy everybody, you'll feel really confident. Yeah, no kidding. I think a 5-year-old knows that. And then he says, I'm not a fan of just words. It has to be physical. And, well, no fucking shit. Like I said, I'm not a sports psychologist, but if you have a sports psychologist and they're telling you, forget working out, don't practice, just sit there and talk and think, I would probably tell them, screw you, you're fired. So of course, you want to be good at jujitsu, you want to be good at fighting, you're going to need to practice like crazy. And that's probably the most important thing that you have to do. So I am in 100% agreement with John here, but I'm kind of wondering who's John arguing with? So in the end, John and Ben's advice is really good, but it's just painfully obvious. And it would work with the majority of the population, but what about that smaller part of the population where it just doesn't work? And John alludes to that person that spends a lot of time in the gym, has a lot of success, knows 100 moves, but when they get into the competition floor, they just can't pull the trigger. They just can't use 100 moves, and they become much less than what they were. What about someone like Georges St-Pierre? The greatest of all time. He beat everybody. He should have been the most confident man in the world, but you know what? He was terrified before every single fight. And it's so interesting because John actually trained Georges St-Pierre, so he should know his mental process. And I actually did a video on George's mental process, and I think that it is perfect. It's amazing, it's brilliant, and it's actually what I would do with my clients if I had a sports person. I made a video about it here. You can go check it out. But so far, everything has been just obvious surface level advice. Let me try to explain things from a psychological perspective. So we as human beings tell ourselves a story or a narrative about what's going on in the world and how we're interacting with that world. And that is where the thoughts come from. And that's what Ben didn't know. It comes from the story that we're telling ourselves. Let's say we see a girl we think is cute and we're approaching that girl. A story that we can tell ourselves is, hey, we're that good looking, charming, popular guy that all girls swoon for, and I'm approaching this girl and she's obviously gonna say yes. And if that were the story, how would you feel? You would feel great. You would feel confident. But let's change the story. Let's say you're that loser that no one likes, and you're gonna approach this girl that's way out of your league. What's gonna happen? You're gonna get rejected. And if that was the case, walking up to the girl, what are the thoughts that are gonna come out? How are you gonna feel? I think it's obvious. And yes, narratives are largely based on history and what we've experienced. And so this is where John is correct. And for most people, I would say, all you need is that history and experience, and you'll be fine. You'll be able to develop that narrative of, hey, I'm really good at this thing, so I'm gonna be able to do it on the next level. But sometimes experience just simply isn't enough, because sometimes you won't take in experience as evidence, and it won't be able to be enough to build a narrative. And it's something that I see and battle against all the time with my clients in therapy. For instance, there's this one very common, very powerful thought that undermines the ability to create a positive narrative. And that thought is, yeah, but. Yeah, I do great in the gym, but it's just practice. Yeah, I know 100 moves, but will I be able to execute it? I don't think so. Yeah, everyone tells me I'm this amazing beast of an animal. I could be world champion, but they're my teammates. They're just probably being nice. And I feel like you can see how you can have all the evidence in the world, but it gets undermined and it doesn't appear as evidence in your own mind. I think Ben and John, what they miss is that we perceive things through a filter, and sometimes that filter can be altered so that what we get isn't reality. And so if that is the case, John, I do feel like sitting there and using your words and figuring it out might be very, very helpful. Well, those are my thoughts, guys. If you disagree, I would love to hear it in the comments down there. If you have anything else you want me to react to, leave it in the comments down there as well. I'm always looking for stuff to react to. I appreciate you watching, guys. I'll see you next time.